Hello, my name is Chad, and welcome to my next video series on VBA for accountants. And in this video, we're basically going to be discussing macros. You may already know what a macros is and how to use the function of the macros recorder in Excel. However, might still be good to go through just as a refresher. We want to kind of understand what a macros is, and how we can use the macros recorder, and so that way we can kind of understand how we can use Excel VBA to program and create macros. It's also good to use the macros recorder because it allows you can go ahead and look at the code that the macros recorder is putting into your VBA editor, and you go ahead and take a look at it and see exactly what it's doing. And I've learned a lot being able to just look at the code and actually manipulate it, just copy paste it into my program, and that way I don't have to write the code. But basically what we're going to do here is, number one is just define what is a macros. So we'll go ahead and look at that. And then number two, we'll go ahead and take a look at just doing macros example with the macros recorder. So we'll go ahead and look at that. And then number three, I'll just fairly briefly just discuss the limitations of the macros recorder. And just when we'll go ahead and look at the code and just see, yeah, we can say different, give it different commands to do within Excel that it records, but you can't do different functions like loops or if-else statements and stuff like that. And that's the stuff that actually makes programming creating macros powerful. So we'll go ahead and discuss that. But what is a macros? Basically, looking at Microsoft, the way they want to define it, it's basically a function of steps of functions of just kind of different steps you're telling it to do, and it's different commands that it's stepping through. So what's happening in a macros recorder is when we're in Excel, we're just doing different things, and it's recording the steps that I'm doing. If I go, for instance, to cell A1 and type something, the macros recorder creates a function for that. And then if we do something else after that, we still have it recording, it does the next thing. So let's go to the record macros button that I just clicked here, and it's in the developer tab. And let's say that we want to create a column up on top that says, in A1 says salesperson, B1 it says state, C1 it's going to say the company name, and then D1 is going to say the sales amount. So we want that on top all the time. Then we also want to go to cell A2 and freeze the panes there, so when we scroll, it'll allow us to see row 1 up on top. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this sales. When you create a macros name, you want it to be descriptive as much as possible. It also cannot start with a number. It'll get mad at you if you do that. If I were to have sales 2 at the end, that's fine. Just cannot have a number on the front. That's the first character. Also, you cannot use a space. If you want to, you can use a underscore instead, or as as another way programmers use sometimes, just use a capital letter and then start typing whatever word, and you can see how the word's separated by the capital letter. Shortcut keys can allow me to hold control down and use one of the keyboards. You're going to have to use a non-numeric key. It has to be an alphabetical key. And another thing you want to realize is that any key that you use that Microsoft already has designated, you're going to override. For instance, if I use Control O, Microsoft uses that. If I'm in Excel and I hit Control O, that opens the open dialog box for me to open an Excel file. So if I use Control O and I start recording and use that as the shortcut key, it's going to override that until I get out of the macros of the workbook, or if I do keep it in the personal workbook, which we'll talk about here in a second, then anytime you have Excel open, Control O is going to be overridden. So one way you can override that, and I recommend using capital letters for any macros you open, because I think with the exception of only like 2 letters, Excel pretty much has all the different shortcut like uh, control buttons and a alphabetical letter used, unless it's a capital letter. Description, you want to give it a good description, so that way if you ever have to come back to it and you have like 30 macros in your list, you can kind of understand, oh, this is what it does. So this puts sales person, state, customer name, and sales dollar in row A and freezes the panes. That's pretty descriptive. So I'm going to hit OK, and you're going to notice here the record macros button. Watch what happens to it. It says stop recording. So as soon as that happens, you know you're in record mode, and anything you do in Excel is going to start recording. So in cell A1, I'm just going to go ahead and type in salesperson, and in B1, I'm going to type in the state, and here we want to put in customer name, and here we want to put sales dollar. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and highlight all and double click in between A and B to do the autofill. I'm going to select row 1. I'm going to make it bold and underlined so we can really see this. I'm going to go ahead also and click on cell A2 and go to the View tab and freeze panes. And this is going to put a line up on top, and so you'll see here in a second when we scroll down, we'll be able to keep this row up on top. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm pretty much done. I'm going to hit stop recording, and now the macros has been created. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and so that way we can see. I'm also going to unfreeze the pane so we can see the fact that it does record that. If I go to macros and developer and click on the sales, it's going to put everything in, and as you see as I scroll, row 1 stays up on top, so it did freeze the panes, it did everything. Another thing, I'm going to go ahead and delete this again. As I mentioned, we did the Control-Shift-O, so if I were to run that, just using the shortcut key, Control-Shift-O, boom, puts everything in. And for some reason, I don't know why, but it did not put in the salesperson. Let's take a look at what it did there. It's just great when you run a video and things don't go the way you want. But what's good is we kind of start to learn what did Chad do wrong here. So I'm going to unfreeze, hit Control. I'm going to start on cell A1, Control-Shift-O, and for some reason that time it worked. I could not give you an explanation why that didn't work, but anyways, that's my video, and I'm just sticking to it that something weird happened. So I want to thank you for watching this, and I'll see you on the next one.